A new voicemail popped up on my phone. An automated transcription appeared below the number. It read, "Hey Liam, G here. Just saw a link to your thing. The bot." I clicked it. "We need to talk about my 90%. My world tilted." 90%? It had to be a typo. An audio glitch. I pressed play, my thumb shaking just a little. "My name is Liam." For 10 years, Gabriel wasn't just my mentor. He was my best friend, my creative partner, the guy who talked me out of quitting design altogether on at least 3 separate occasions. When he told me my job was being eliminated in the restructuring, he'd had tears in his eyes. He said it was the hardest conversation he'd ever had. I believed him. I really, really did. _break, trust. Gabriel was the art director at Omnicorp, and I was his senior designer. We were a unit. We shared a brain, finishing each other's sentences about kerning and hex codes. He was the one who pushed my weird niche illustration style into major campaigns. He'd march into the CEO's office and say my work wasn't outdated, it was signature, and he'd win, for me. He always went to bat for me. When he gave me the news, he did it over expensive whiskey at a quiet bar, not in a sterile HR room. He told me it came from the board, that his hands were tied, that they were bringing in a consulting firm to streamline the creative department, which was corporate speak for fire the expensive people. He slid the severance paperwork across the table like it was poison. He told me they didn't deserve my talent, that the place would fall apart without me. He looked genuinely wrecked. He even helped me pack up my desk on my last day, a quiet Saturday when the office was a ghost town. He picked up one of my little clay figures I kept by my monitor, a tiny, sad robot. He said he'd always loved my style, that it had heart, something the corporate world was allergic to. He promised he'd put out feelers, make some calls. He was my guy, my advocate, my friend. He said this layoff was a blessing in disguise, a chance for me to build something of my own, something true to my vision. He checked in constantly for the first few months, texts at random hours, links to freelance gigs that were always just slightly wrong for me. He'd send a link to a corporate logo job and add a note that said, I know, soul crushing, but it pays the rent. Every message felt like a lifeline, a reminder that the best art director in the city still believed in me. Even when I was getting automated rejection emails for jobs I was wildly overqualified for. My best friend Sasha, a coder with a healthy distrust for all corporations, was more skeptical. She thought the whole restructuring sounded fishy. But I defended him. I told her she didn't know Gabriel like I did. He was one of the good ones. He was fighting from the inside. The way he talked about the soulless consultants, the empty jargon from the board, he hated it more than I did. I was just the casualty. He was the one who had to live with the wreckage. _break, the first crack. About 4 months into my feud employment tour, I was deep in a coding spiral. The constant reformatting of my portfolio for every job application was soul destroying. One company wanted minimalist corporate. The next wanted playful tech startup. My unique style, the one Gabriel had championed, was now a liability. It was too niche, not a fit for our brand identity, so I built Portfolio Bot. A little AI script that could take my core work and remix it, reskin it, and repackage it for any industry. Sasha helped me refine the code, turning my clumsy script into something sleek and powerful. One night, I mentioned it to Gabriel over a quick call. I was excited, buzzing with the first spark of hope I'd felt in months. I explained how the bot could analyze a company's branding and generate a custom portfolio in seconds. His reaction was weird. A long pause on the other end of the line. Then, not excitement, but a kind of flat, clinical interest. He asked a lot of very specific questions about the algorithm, about the data sets, about whether I'd filed for a patent. It felt less like a friend and more like a venture capitalist doing due diligence. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself he was just in work mode. He was an art director, after all. He thinks in terms of assets and deliverables. I explained it was just a personal tool, a way to get my foot back in the door. He said it was brilliant. Genius, even. He told me not to show it to anyone else yet. He said it was too valuable. Let him think on it, he said. He might know some people who would invest. I felt a swell of gratitude. Of course, he was looking out for me, protecting my idea. _break, rationalizing. Then came the Omnicorp project, a huge, public-facing rebrand. Gabriel called me, sounding stressed. He said the new design firm was a disaster. All style, no substance. He asked if I'd be willing to do some freelance work under the radar, a sort of ghost designing gig. He said he could hide it in the budget, pay me out of discretionary fund. He said he needed my eye, my specific style. The very style they just laid me off for having. It felt strange, a little insulting even, but the money was good, and honestly, my pride was already in a million pieces. What was one more? I said yes. We worked through a shared server he set up. I'd upload designs, and he'd give feedback through encrypted messages. He was adamant about security. He said if the consultants found out he was outsourcing to a former employee with a niche portfolio, they'd have his head. It made sense. Corporate politics. I was helping my friend, and he was helping me. Sasha hated the idea. She said I was letting them use me, that they were getting my $1 million talent for a bargain bin price without having to pay my benefits. I told her it was more complex than that. It was about loyalty. Gabriel was stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to save a project he cared about. He was leveraging the one asset he knew he could count on, me. He was trusting me. I remember one late night, I sent over a full deck of illustrations for the campaign. The bot had helped me generate a dozen variations, each one perfectly tailored to the new brand guidelines he'd sent over. He messaged me back almost instantly, not about the work. He asked what the bot was doing. He said he had an idea. What if we pitched the bot itself, he typed, as an internal Omnicorp tool, a joint venture. I handle the business side. You handle the creative. 50-50ths. I was stunned. It felt huge. Life-changing. But something fell off. 50-50ths. For an idea and a tool I had built entirely on my own, in my own apartment, on my own time. I told him I wasn't sure I wanted to get back into bed with Omnicorp. He was so smooth. He said it wasn't about them. It was about us. Our partnership. He said, I can protect you this time. I told myself the unease I felt was just fear of success. Gabriel knew the landscape. He knew how to navigate the sharks. I needed him. Act_break. Eyes open. Portfolio bot started getting buzz. Sasha convinced me to put up a simple landing page just to show it off. It got picked up by a design blog, then another. Suddenly my inbox was flooded. Not with job offers, but with other designers asking if they could use the tool. The idea of turning it into a real startup began to feel less like a daydream and more like a plan. I was on a call with a potential investor, a small firm Sasha knew, when I got a string of frantic texts from Gabriel. He was asking if I'd been talking to anyone. He said we needed to be a united front. That moving too fast could devalue the whole thing. He said he was already in talks with Omnicorp's innovation lab, that a big internal deal was on the table, far more lucrative than some seed round chump change. He wanted to meet, urgently, at his office. He said he'd clear it with security. Walking back into that building felt like walking into my own past. The air was the same. The faint smell of burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Gabriel met me in the lobby, all smiles and expensive blazer. He looked successful, thriving. He led me to a conference room, not his office. That was the first thing that felt truly wrong. He had a presentation queued up on the big screen. It was my bot, my interface, my design assets. But the title slide read, Project Chimera, an Omnicorp internal IP. My name was nowhere. He launched into a pitch, his voice slick and confident. He talked about market potential, synergy, and leveraging proprietary assets. He used the word we a lot. We identified a gap in the market. We developed a scalable solution. My stomach felt cold. I wasn't his partner. I was his resource. He clicked to a slide about the development team. He pointed to his own name, listed as project lead. Then he pointed to a smaller line below it. External vendor, Liam Bender. He must have seen the look on my face. The mask slipped. Just for a second. A flicker of annoyance crossed his features before the warm, encouraging smile snapped back into place. He said this was just for the internal pitch. A formality. He said once the project was greenlit, we'd formalize the partnership. He told me not to worry about the details. That was his job. His job was to handle the optics. Act_break, the wait OFIT. I went home and I couldn't sit still. I paced my small apartment. The ghost of that presentation burned into my vision. External vendor. The words echoed. I started pulling up old emails, old text messages. I was looking for, I didn't know what. Proof? Absolution? A reason to believe I hadn't been a complete and utter fool. And then I found it. An email from Gabriel dated 3 days before my layoff. The subject line was restructuring finalized. He must have sent it to me by accident. A reply all to a thread he was on with HR and the board. My name was on a list of redundancies, but next to it was a note. A note in his familiar, concise language. Asset is signature but inflexible. Recommends severance and non-compete. Can retain as freelance contractor for Project Chimera at a reduced rate. Low flight risk. He hadn't been fighting for me. He had orchestrated it. He got rid of my salary, my benefits, my job security, all so he could buy my signature style at a discount for a project he was already planning. The freelance work wasn't a lifeline. It was data collection. He was using me to train the model he was planning to steal. Then I listened to the voicemail again. We need to talk about my 90%. It wasn't a typo. I reread the original partnership text he sent. 50/50ths. Now I saw it. He never said what the split was of. 50% of the profits? Or 50% of what was left after Omnicorp took their massive, unspoken cut? The difference was my entire future. I sat on my sofa, the city lights blinking outside my window. The room was dark except for the glow of my phone. There would be no confrontation, no dramatic showdown in a conference room. You can't confront a performance. You can only realize you were part of the audience the whole time. Sasha's startup offer was still in my inbox, a real one, with equity and a title. I looked at the little clay robot on my desk, the one Gabriel had said had so much heart. He was right about one thing. This was a chance to build something of my own. Something true. I opened my laptop, created a new folder, and dragged every single file from Gabriel's secure server into it. Then I forwarded the restructuring finalized email to my lawyer. I didn't feel angry anymore, just heavy. The weight of knowing was so much heavier than the comfort of the lie. I typed a simple reply to Sasha, just 2 words. My AI Joe Bot Suite Revenge.